So if you're using a spreadsheet, sometimes you want to find the largest value, usually the largest number in a data set. So we have two functions we're going to be using here. It's max and maxa. They work a little bit differently, but we will use them both. And in these first few examples, they'll work the same, which I'll explain why. So on this first column of data, we will use the max function. And max, like I said before, it just looks through a set of data and returns the largest number. Okay, so we will say max, and now we want to tell it where the data is. So I will take my mouse, I'll select B7, and I'll go down to B10. You could also just type that in. Close the parentheses, hit enter, and it gives you a 261.96. And it's pretty easy to tell that that's the largest number, right? And of course, this is just for demonstration. You're probably using this if you have a much larger set of data. So you want to, you can't just look through it visually. And these are oftentimes also used inside other formulas. But while I was talking, I also just typed out the maxa function. And when we're just using numbers, the two work the same, right? So we have the same result here. We will look at what it does for dates, and let's talk about dates for a second. So dates are numbers in Google Sheets. So the way that they're represented as numbers is that they're integers, as long as there's no time involved. And each successive day is one more than the previous day. So it will look at these dates, it will look at them in like numbers, and it will grab the largest number, which is also the latest date, right? I think that made sense. Made sense to me at least. So we'll do max, we'll hit enter, and it returns May 6, 2024, which is the latest date of these four. So that's working well. Largest number, latest date, same thing. We'll do maxa real quick. Same result. You may be wondering why I keep using maxa, but you will see soon. All right, so max and maxa are going to work different when there is text involved. And if you look at these data sets, row 32 has none typed out. You can see by the way it's defaulted to shift to the left in the cell. It's left aligned. That's a little hint to tell you that it's text. It's not a number. So the max function is going to skip that. It's not even going to look at it. So when I do B30 to B33, it's going to skip none altogether and return 31. So it's like it wasn't there. When I do the maxa function, it's not going to skip row 32. It's going to evaluate it as 0. So in this case, it's still going to return the same number. I promise we'll get to somewhere it returns something different. But for most cases, max and maxa really are going to do the same thing for you. But let's talk about some times when it won't. And one of the times is when you're using negative numbers and some text. So when you use negative numbers, the logic kind of flips. It doesn't really, but it seems like it flips. So if I were to look at this data set, if it wasn't negative, 7.24 would be the largest, right? But because it's negative, that's actually the smallest number here, right? 6.34 is the largest. So if we do max, it will ignore the 0 and it will return negative 6.34 because that is the largest number. But if we do maxa, drum roll, this is exciting, it will return a different result, right? And what it's doing is it is evaluating the text value and it's evaluating as 0. And in this case, because the other numbers are negative, the 0 is actually the largest number. Okay, so you will see a difference in that case. Let's go down to the last example. So common data types are text and numbers, but you also have like a true-false data type, also called logical or Boolean, B-O-O-L-E-A-N, all right? We'll call it Boolean, we'll call it Boolean. So this data type is, it's funny, when you click on it, it's an unchecked checkbox, right? You get that by doing the insert checkbox here. But when you look up in the formula bar, It's shows you that it's also just evaluates to false. And when you go to a checked one, it's true. So if you use the max function on this, it will just ignore all of those. It will just completely ignore them, but it returns a 0. All right. Why it doesn't return an error is actually a good question. I digress. But if you use the MAXA function, and we look at all of these, it will evaluate a false as a 0 and a true as a 1. So when I close this off, it returns a 1. And in this next video, we're going to look at, see how we inserted checkbox there. We'll look at all sorts of new data types that we can use called smart chips. I'll see you in that video. Thanks for watching. Oh, and by the way, I'm Adam Steinfurth with SheetsHelp.com.